So now that 2018 is over and we're a little less than a month away from the official start of Year of the Harbinger, I really wanted to look back at every season in For Honor so far and rank them one by one while we prepare for Season 9. The game has come a long way from its betas and has evolved in almost every way, for better or for worse. So in this video, I'll be looking at all 8 of the seasons so far and rank them based on how good it was for the game and, more importantly, how fun it was. Now, of course, this is all subjective and is just my opinion, and I always love to hear from you guys, so if you disagree with me, tell me down in the comments and let me know what order you'd place the seasons. Now, let's not waste any more time and get right into it. So, starting off this list is what I consider to be the worst season in For Honor, Season 2, Shadow and Might, released on May 16th, 2017. This is where I think a bunch of people stopped playing For Honor. In the weeks prior to its release, the complaints were really starting to pile up, especially regarding connectivity and actually being able to play the game. There were also discussions of the defensive meta or turtle meta, as players were starting to get frustrated with how easy it was to defend yourself. Then they drop Centurion and Shinobi on top of all of the existing negativity, and it really wasn't looking pretty for For Honor. Anyone who was around at the start of Season 2 remembers how messy it was. Shinobi was insanely safe with that kick that Yubi worked on relatively fast to their credit, and Centurion was causing chaos in every game mode. If you happen to get ganked by at least 2 Centurions, you legitimately couldn't even see your screen or move your hero because of all the punches and kicks, including the infinite wall splat. It was just awful. They were created to open up turtles, and they did this very well at the time. They did it a little too well, but all this did was make it so that anyone on the opposing side of Centurion or Shinobi had no reason to attack first. Why would they? Shinobi may have only had 90 health at the time and was really a glass cannon, but it was pretty tough to actually catch a good Shinobi, harder than it is now. And attacking against a Centurion who had a grasp on parrying was a death sentence if you were near a wall, since guard break on parry was still a thing. This isn't to say that there weren't some decent changes in Season 2. We got 2 of my favorite maps in Forge and Temple Garden, a new tier for gear, Raider had finally gotten buffed, giving him the stunning tap soft feint, there were gear stat changes, they buffed the XP gains, but it still wasn't enough. The game's community was at its saltiest point, Yubi wasn't addressing issues fast enough, and there was just little hope for Honor. And when I look back on it, I can't say that any season was worse than Season 2 just because of how it really hurt For Honor as a whole so much. Not just in gameplay, but also its reputation. Next, coming in at number 7 is fittingly Season 7, Storm and Fury, released on August 2nd, 2018. And the reason it's all the way down here is because it was easily the most bland season we ever received, and the reworks felt sort of rushed. The gameplay was in a good spot, dedicated servers still doing well and all, but nothing happened. It felt like an off season. We got the Warden and Valkyrie reworks, both of which again didn't really meet the quality of the Season 5 reworks. Warden went from being a shoulder bash first hero to a stronger shoulder bash first hero with an unblockable. Rather than do what everyone asked for and turn him into a swordsman, they decided to keep his shoulder bash identity, and that still confuses me. They let him chain his zone, they gave him an unblockable, the dodging heavy, and buffed his shoulder bash. I really thought that they'd put a lot more care into this one, as he's one of the most popular heroes in the game, but that didn't happen. I won't talk about his shoulder bash in this video because you've heard my thoughts on it a few times already, but it's the best thing he's got going for him. As for Valkyrie, again, you've heard my thoughts on her enough, but somehow she's become my main, mainly because of the way her kit flows. Although it can get pretty repetitive as she doesn't have too much to work with. They tried to nerf her shield tackle since it was apparently too strong, which it wasn't. And while trying to nerf it, they turned it into one of the best defensive options in the game. They also never came back and gave her more improvements, which is sort of disappointing, but oh well. Other than that, there wasn't anything else. They added more reps so that you can get your hero to rep 60. They added some new ranks to ranked mode and added a new map, and that was basically it. It really felt like Season 7 was just all of us waiting for Marching Fire to release. Alright, so moving into number 6 is again fittingly Season 6, Heroes March, released May 17th, 2018. So the reason Season 6 is down here rather than higher up on the list is because it felt so disappointing compared to Season 5. And again, felt so bare bones as it's the smallest seasonal update we've had in terms of content. Recently, I've been comparing Season 8 to Season 6 and 7 combined because combining them is the only way I can justify comparing the seasons because of the lack of content. Even combined, these two seasons have less content than Season 8 as a whole, maybe even less than Season 5. Anyway, Season 6 felt like it was the start of the whole "we're looking into it" meme that's been going around, as this is when For Honor started to feel like a drag, and this is when players really started talking about how slow the devs were. And I think more people noticed it since we hardly had anything else to distract us. We got the Orochi rework and the Peacekeeper nerf adjustment, whatever you want to call it. Orochi basically got a buff to Storm Rush 400 millisecond chain lights, changes to Riptide Strike, and a few general buffs, but all people focus on are his 400 millisecond lights. And then Peacekeeper got a bunch of nerfs, bleed stacks, and a dagger cancel. Those were our two reworks, the big highlight of the season, the follow-ups to the Kensei and Berserker reworks. I mean, we got a new map and I think a champion status buff, but that was basically it. The only reason Season 6 is ahead of Season 7 on this list is because UB heard our feedback from Season 6. They saw that we were really unimpressed, and then they did the exact same thing in Season 7. Next up on the list at number 5 is Season 4, Order and Havoc, released on November 14th, 2017. Season 4 was the final season of the original Season Pass and gave us Aramusha and Shaman. And if you played at the start of Season 4, you remember the way the community treated Shaman. There was a full-on hate train for Shaman. Aramusha has some backlash from console players for his light spam, but Shaman was really hated. Very different from today, where Shaman is accepted now that she's had her fair share of nerfs. When she released, she was like a Swiss Army knife compared to the rest of the cast. A good feintable bash like a wall splat, 2-part zone, soft feints, bleed, a bite that does 50 damage and heals the Shaman, a decent side dodge attack, a great forward dodge attack that could hit from multiple directions, on top of a regular assassin guard and average assassin health. Shaman was really no joke before her nerfs, and the community took every chance to criticize her and the dev team. I don't think Shaman was as bad as Centurion though. Aramusha was one of the only heroes I was looking forward to, and he didn't really deliver for me. Other than new heroes, we got Tribute, For Honor's take on Capture the Flag, which at the time was a nice addition to the game. A bunch of people actually played the mode, and it was a nice change of pace from playing Dominion all day. We got my favorite looking map, Market Town, and the Gauntlet as well. We also got the ability to have 4 executions equipped at once rather than 2, and this is when the critical health regen was removed. Back then, if you were down below your last bar of health, your health would regenerate until that first bar was full. UB removed this because it basically encouraged turtling up and waiting until your health regenerated a bit, and it really dragged on fights, and I think this was one of the best fight changes UB has ever made to the game. Season 4 wasn't a bad season. If Shaman had released in the state she is now, and Aramusha released a little better, I think Season 4 would be regarded as one of For Honor's best seasons. So I had a tough time deciding which season would be placed at number 4, as the next 2 placements are really close for me, and the only thing that put one above the other is fun and enjoyment. So at number 4 is the current season, Season 8, Marching Fire, released October 16th, 2018. I don't talk about this much, but this is the season that I almost exclusively started playing For Honor on PC, as I don't enjoy playing it on console anymore because of this update. Again, I think the Wulin are fine for Honor. It's what UB wants this game to be, and it's clear that this is how UB wants the Wulin to be, but that doesn't mean I have to like it or enjoy it. It does feel like console is basically disregarded sometimes. Every update added to the game makes playing on console feel worse, and it feels like it just sits on top of the problems the game has. I know it's not because of the 30 frames per second. There's a lot that goes into why console feels faster and worse, but that doesn't really change the fact that it's not the way to play this game. I play on console sometimes if I have someone to play with or if I want to do a weekly arcade quest, but that's about it. Players are generally more laggy on console due to their setups and whatnot, making the Wulin a little more frustrating to go up against. I'm not against console players, as some of you guys have been thinking recently. I played almost exclusively on console for 7 seasons, but not anymore. And that's literally the only reason this is placed at number 4 rather than at number 3. And I know how personal that is, but as I said, this entire list is just my opinion. Other than that, Marching Fire is fantastic. The game's in its best state other than a few bugs, and we got 4 brand new heroes and Breach. I think the entire Wulin faction was well made, and they do what they're here to do for the most part. Shaolin and Jang Jun still need some work, but when that's ironed out, they'll be where they need to be, and I don't think Yubi will work on them anymore. Breach has become my favorite game mode, but as I said in my Play the Objective video, your enjoyment is sort of dependent on your teammates, as having bad teammates or getting stuck with bots usually leaves you in a bad situation. Add on top of that the graphical improvements and general improvements, and you've got a packed update. It's the most content Yubi ever dropped at once, and it did a pretty good job at keeping players interested for a few weeks. It's the most I've played For Honor in the past 3 or 4 seasons. It may have released with a whimper rather than a bang, but overall, it really is a good season. Okay, so now we're in the top 3. Some of my favorite seasons in For Honor, and at number 3, we've got Season 3, Grudge and Glory, released August 15th, 2017. Not as much content as Season 8 or even Season 4, but it was just a good season. I think Season 3 may have been one of the most well-received seasons because there was nothing added to the game that really hurt it, and it was also the season that Centurion was nerfed. We got Gladiator, the best DLC hero at the time, and Highlander, who was way weaker than he is now. We got 2 new maps, a bunch of new armor and weapon variants, and a whole lot of bug fixes and changes. The only bad thing in this update was ranked mode, which I mean, at the time was interesting, but nowadays it's sort of a joke. They added the anti-run feature in duels, which would slow down the player running away and take away their stamina, while the pursuer would get a speed boost because, believe it or not, people would actually run away from you in duels after they got a life lead. On top of that, chip damage was bumped up big time because before it was so tiny that it was hardly even noticed. Lawbringer also received the smallest buff imaginable. I mean, Season 3 was just a good season. Gladiator was so much fun for me, and I don't think there were any real problems the game had other than the long-going problems the game had anyways. The game was just fun during Season 3, and the reason it's ahead of Season 8 is because of that. Season 8 is a good season, and For Honor is at its best in Season 8, but it's just not as fun as Season 3 or what's ahead of it on this list. Taking the number 2 spot on this list was the one that started it all. At number 2 is Season 1, the launch of For Honor on Tuesday, February 14th, 2017. Valentine's Day. The rose-tinted glasses were on, not just because it was Valentine's Day, but because the beta had blew us all away. The game was nowhere near perfect, not even close. The first person I talked to about the game claimed he was a reviewer, said that he could hardly play the game, and I never really had that problem. Technically, the game was a mess, and honestly, I think a bunch of players would still have stuck with the game if they could actually play it without getting disconnected. I love this game, I really did. I was hooked to it and put so many hours into it, all while ignoring the huge red flags. It wasn't until towards the end of the season that the problems became apparent. That's when people started asking if the game would survive until the end of the year, and the dead game rumors had begun. I honestly didn't really care though. No one knew what was going on, and they were just playing for fun. Blocking was optional, and honor was a really important thing. Compared to now, there were a ton of problems, but the game was just so hype and fun, and Season 1 is still one of my favorite seasons to this day. And finally, at number 1, my favorite season of For Honor so far goes to Season 5, Age of Wolves, released on February 15th, 2018. I talk about Season 5 all the time because that's when I was just so hopeful for Honor. It was the 1-year anniversary for the game, and they had a lot in store for us. It was the start of our off-brand Operation Health. I thought things were going to get better. We got the long-awaited dedicated servers that worked like a charm, 3 huge reworks, 2 good adjustments, and one of the most important fight changes in removing guard break off parry and making it very clear what you got for a parry. They added XP boosts, attempted skill-based matchmaking, allowed more effects on your hero, along with a bunch of quality of life changes, bug fixes, and general updates to gear and stuff. It was the first time that I felt like the devs had finally got it all together. In the patch notes, they broke down everything. They told us what they were doing and why. They gave us all this stuff and really set the bar for what the next 2 seasons of improvements would look like. If they had kept this pace up, the game would be fantastic right now, and we could have welcomed in Marching Fire while For Honor was at its best. We later found out that Ubi would not keep this up, but that doesn't change the fact that Season 5 was fantastic. The Kensei rework is exactly what a rework should be. They took a hero's identity and expanded on it in a way that made him fun to fight as and against, while being more viable in higher level play. Berserker turned into a monster and a hyper armor machine, which can be toned down still, but it made a great character, and Conk's rework wasn't as good, making his shield bash and defensive options really strong, but hopefully one day they'll work on that. Highlander got a bunch of changes that made him a better hero overall, and Nobushi also got a few changes as well. That's 5 heroes that they touched on in one season, and with all the other changes to the game, it felt like a brand new experience on top of new servers. I have nothing but praise for Season 5. There may have been some problems with the game still, but it really looked like Ubi was on top of it, and this is when I was having the most fun with For Honor, and I really think it's the best season For Honor has given us to this day. And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. The reason I didn't include the alpha or betas is because I didn't play in the alpha. I did get to play in the betas, but they didn't feel too different from launch. If you haven't seen alpha gameplay from this game though, I highly suggest you look it up. It was insane. Orochi looked like he got a free deflect from blocking, and Storm Rush was just broke. It's really interesting stuff. As I said at the start of this video, this was all my opinion, and if yours differ, I would love to know what you think, or if you want, just tell me what your favorite and least favorite seasons are down in the comments. I know I'm a day late on this, but Happy New Year to all of you guys. 2018 was a pretty eventful year for me, and a lot of it was because of you guys. We doubled our sub count, and because of you guys, I've become a lot more comfortable just being myself rather than putting on some fake front for the sake of the video. I appreciate all the support you guys have been giving me, and I'm hoping to keep providing content for you guys throughout this year as well, without taking, month-long breaks in between. Anyways, as usual, if you agree with me or just like the video, feel free to leave a like and sub if you're new, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.